John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. And this one, guys, is going to be a really good one here. So I was actually invited to speak for the Homegrown Food Summit that took place online, I guess earlier in the spring this year. Actually, I'll post a link down below to the Homegrown Food Summit. Myself, as well as over, 24 different, speakers, educators, people that have been growing food for a long time in the whole homegrown food movement, actually spoke at this event. And at the time it was free, and now you could pay for to watch them and whatnot. And I submitted and made a video of like an hour and a half, and I was told that it has to be like an hour, so I had to actually chop out a lot of stuff. And I hate when I really have to cut out content, because I believe the content, and I know some of you guys don't like long videos, but everything I say in a video has a reason and an importance on why I'm saying it. I'm here not to like give you the quick 5-second quick fix, like Viagra will help you get it up. That's a quick fix. There are always repercussions to not having the full information and the full story. With just partial information, you could make decisions that will, inappropriately affect your life. Like back in the day, doctors recommended cigarette smoking, but, and that's definitely not a good thing, cigarette smoking. Now they've proven it's not really that healthy for you. And that's, people didn't have the right information. They're actually getting misinformed, and there's a lot of misinformation going on here. So I try to fully explain myself in my video so you'll get the full story. So anyways, I actually had to chop off like a good half hour of my video, and I didn't really like doing that, but I submitted it. It went out, and a lot of people watched it, and I got a lot of feedback, and everybody loved it. So I thought I'd bring it out to my own homegrown viewers out there so that they could watch the full uncut, I happen to be cut, version, so you guys could benefit from. So the title of this video is simply titled, How to Grow and Use Sprouts, Microgreens, and Full-Size, leafy greens in your garden, outside. And the sprouts and the microgreens you can't grow inside. So whether you're living in an apartment, a condo, a townhouse, or have a real house and have some space, you can grow your greens. And that's what my channel is called. It's called Growing Your Greens, because I want you guys to be able to grow and eat your leafy green vegetables. They're the #1 most important food on the planet, for planetary health. Because if you think about it, every animal, every creature on the earth eats these amazing leafy green vegetables or green foods, whether that's, green vegetables like land-based, like cows or oxen or giraffes eating leaves, or the fish, eating the algae, the green vegetables, or the algae or the seaweeds of the ocean. That's where all the food starts. So, I'm going to cut out the middleman and just eat the green leafy vegetables, because they are so rich in phytochemicals, phytonutrients, protein, as well as the trace minerals, especially when you're growing the way that I teach you guys, because most, industrial grown food does not have the level of nutrition that you could get out of your own garden. And let me tell you, you guys could taste the difference. So if you're not growing already, I hope this video really motivates you to start growing some more greens. And if you are growing them, hopefully it also motivates you to use them more, because also in this video I'll share with you guys the 2 best ways on how to use your leafy greens so that you can get more of them into you to benefit you, and also hopefully get them into your family as well. So anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this 1 hour and a half approximately long video. Alright, this is John Kohler with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today I have another special episode actually for you. This is for the Homegrown Food Summit. What's up all you guys out there? And today I'm going to share with you guys actually the #1 way to grow food at home at a standard residential house. I mean, we've got a standard residential house behind me here, and this is where most of America lives. Most of America does not live on farms with acreage where they could, have free-range cattle and all these kind of things, or live near a, a wildlife refuge where you could hunt deer, whatever. What I want to share with you guys is a way that you could easily grow the best food on the planet, literally just at your house. And I want to give you guys a background on me, because I know many of you guys may have never heard of me from Adam, and you guys don't know who I am. So I want to share with you guys how I got into this, and why I've been so popular. I have a YouTube channel, Growing Your Greens. I have over 200,000 subscribers at this time. I've been viewed over 29 million times. and I have over 1,000 videos all for free for you guys to share with you guys all aspects of growing food at home. Besides just me having episodes at my house, I travel all over the country, even the world, to share with you guys how other people are growing foods at home, so that to give you guys some ideas and to hopefully ignite your fire so that you will grow some food at home and be a change that you want to see in the world. Now, I'm not a horticulture expert. I didn't go to school for biology or horticulture. I'm not from a generation of family farmers that have been passed down since Egypt or whatever. I'm just a normal guy, watching like you, out there. I learned that there's a strong reason for me to grow my own food. I got into growing my own food, and simply I just want to share that with you guys, the best techniques and strategies that I've learned over the years. I crack a few funny and maybe not so funny jokes at the same time, to educate you and teach you, inspire you to get growing, and that's why I believe I've been so popular. So if you haven't checked me out already, be sure to check me out at growingyourgreens.com. The other thing I do is that I just teach in common man's words. I don't use all these fancy scientific jargons. I just teach you guys the facts of what works for me, how you guys could do it so that you guys could be healthier, wealthier, and wiser in the end. In any case, while I do grow in my front yard, today I'm going to show you guys about backyard gardening. I know with many homeowners associations and different laws in certain areas, which I think are ridiculous, you literally can't grow food, or a vegetable garden in your front yard. So then that leaves the backyard. So let's go ahead and head to my backyard and show you guys what I got growing on, and more importantly, some of the crops you will want to grow, in my opinion. So what we're looking at now is simply my backyard here, and you can kind of see a glimpse of the neighbor's backyard if you could see the whole neighbor's backyard, basically just rocked in. And I might know what you might be thinking, John, I never grown anything before, and I got brown thumbs. That's all right, I didn't start out with green thumbs at all. They turn green, and they're turning darker shades of green every day as I continue this fun journey of gardening. And I want to let you guys know, no matter where you live, you can always grow some food. I live in one of the most difficult places in the United States to grow food, in the Southwest desert. I'm in Las Vegas. Most people behind me and most landscaping is desert landscaping. And people have this misbelief that you can't grow food in the desert. And what I've learned since I moved here, you can grow food in the desert, and I've actually living and growing in the desert has made me a better gardener, because I've had to learn and do different things than I did previously when I was in California, where things grow pretty easy in most places in California. So yeah, no matter where you live, you could always grow some food, and I'm growing quite a bit of food in just a small amount of space. I have a standard residential house. It's about 5,227 square feet, approximately 0.12 of an acre. And this is what many of you guys may have. You guys might have a little bit more space, or maybe even a little less. But I want to let you guys know that even in a small space, you can make a difference in your diet, and you can grow all your vegetable needs, year round like I do if you live in a mild climate. And even if you live somewhere where it snows in the winter, you can still grow greens, year round. There are techniques and ways you could do that using hoop houses, double hoop houses, and, using a source of compost for your heating. And I have episodes on this on my show. Today I'm going to really get into, the most important food crop you can grow, whether you want to become healthier, whether you want to be able to survive in case something shit hits the fan, no matter the reason, the greens that I teach you guys how to grow, and as well as other vegetables and fruits on my channel and my show, are the most important crops that I believe you guys should be growing. So today what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and take you down to the garden and share with you guys some reasons why the greens are so important and why I focus on greens instead of any other food that I could grow in my backyard. Number two, I want to share with you guys some easy greens that you guys could grow year round if you're in a mild climate. These are known as perennial greens, some of the ones that have done amazing for me here that grow year round, 365 days a year, including one that you can maybe see over there. Literally, it's a 12-foot tall vegetable tree that you can just pick leafy green vegetables off of every day of the year, non-stop. Imagine if every house in America had a 12-foot tall leafy green vegetable tree, you wouldn't have to go down and buy, leaves, kale leaves or whatever, dark leafy green leaves at your local Whole Paycheck or, whole health food store. I was recently in Chicago. They're like $3 a pound for some leaves. That's ridiculous. I have copious and abundance and everlasting amounts of leafy greens that I could harvest for free and clear, and even better, the leafy greens that I grow are better than the ones money can buy. And I want to also let you guys know that, when you guys grow a garden, you could grow stuff better than what's available in the store. I know many of you guys have had homegrown tomatoes and tomatoes from the store in the wintertime. There's no comparison, but every food that you guys can grow could be dramatically better than the crap at the grocery store, and those are the techniques that I teach you guys, and I'll share with you guys some of those today. Now, aside from the standard perennial vegetables, of course, I have annual vegetable crops to fill in to keep my diet full of diversity, which I'll show you, some areas that I grow a diverse amount of different crops in, and the methods, how I do it. I use a square foot raised bed gardening, which is my primary method, crossed with biointensive. So you also want to check out John Jevons. He's also one of the speakers here in this summit, and I would highly encourage you guys to check him out. I basically take the biointensive from a farming scale, move it down into a backyard scale, so I really pack things in, give the soil good nutrients, use some of the techniques out of the Mel Bartholomew square foot gardening method, and plus many of my own techniques to really have the most amount of food in the smallest amount of space, because when you have little space, like most Americans do, to grow food, you really need to utilize every nook and cranny. So if you're looking at the picture down below there, I have really small walkways. Luckily, I'm a thin person who can get through some of these small walkways, but I've really dedicated the most amount of space to growing food because, after all, at the end of the day, we all need to eat, and I want to eat some of the highest quality, best stuff on the whole planet. So now, aside from these two ways, the perennials and the annual vegetables that I'll be sharing with you guys today, I'm also going to talk about, growing your own food inside your kitchen, inside your house, sprouts and microgreens. We'll be having a little segment on that. And then finally, I'm going to share with you guys the best way you guys could get the fruits and vegetables, including all these leafy greens, into your diet, because I know, your kids, if you got them, might make funny faces if you're trying to get them to eat Brussels sprouts. But, I'll tell you guys how you could easily get the Brussels sprouts in you so you guys could get the health benefits from them. Have more phytochemicals, phytonutrients, and phytochemicals that are going to keep you young, keep disease at bay, and give you more energy that you need to get everything you need to get done during the day. I'm going to show you guys the easiest way possible you guys could do that. I have been on a healthy lifestyle path now for 20 years. This is my 20th year anniversary. Started in 1995 on this path, and I've been growing food for 10 plus years now. And so I have a wealth of knowledge that I love to share with you guys so that I can make the world a better place, one person at a time. In any case, let's start this journey. I'm going to head down to my garden and start sharing with you guys some of the techniques, plants, and all this kind of cool stuff so that you guys too can be growing your greens. So now I'm back on the ground. I'm going to share with you guys just some of the places I grow my greens, but more importantly, how important greens are to you, for your personal health, but also planetary health. This is one side or one half of my backyard. It has these concrete block raised beds. I have about 6 different size concrete block raised beds. This one's about 4 feet by about 16 feet and has over 100 heads of lettuce growing inside there. I have one behind with things like broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage in there, plus some sugar snap peas growing at the trellis, and then behind that I have even more greens growing. And in general, I like to grow greens in the winter, fall, and spring season when they do the best. In the middle of the heat in summer, these greens don't produce well, although I have found ones that do that I will share with you guys in just a little bit. So now I want to talk about the health benefits of the leafy greens. Even since we were young, we might have watched Popeye on the tube on TV, not on YouTube, on TV, and how he was so strong because he ate his spinach. And I think that's an excellent, good message to get out to kids, and even more so adults. The fact of the matter is clear that Americans are not eating their fruits and vegetables. Most Americans may get 2 servings a day, And to be optimally healthy, they recommend 5 to 7, but even more so, there is research that comes out to, have a longer life expectancy and to reduce, the percentage of chance that you'll get cancer is to eat more fruits and vegetables. And I like to focus on the leafy greens because leafy greens are, one of the most powerful plant foods on the whole entire planet. They are rich in different phytonutrients and phytochemicals that basically are anti-cancerous, and anti-aging. So if you want to stay young, have more energy, greens are definitely the way to go. Next, I want to kind of dive into, some of the reasons why the greens are so important to me. So the top reason why the greens and other fruits and vegetables are so important to me is because I almost lost my life. And I know many of you guys probably may not have had this happen to you, and some of you guys may have had, life-threatening illnesses where you were hospitalized and the doctors told you that you might not make it out alive. And this is simply what happened to me at a young age. Right when I was out of college, I graduated college, had my whole life ahead of me. I was stricken with spinal meningitis, which is, in many cases, a fatal disease. I was hospitalized. I woke up in intensive care because I had passed out. And I was like, well, where am I? And didn't even know where I was. And asked the doctor, hey, doc, when am I going to get out of here? And then he said the news that nobody ever wants to hear, especially, when you're in your 20s, just graduated college. So you might not make it out of here. And then first thing I thought was, oh shit, that's not cool. But I had a lot of time to think when I was in the hospital, and I was like, John, what's really important right now is, like, if you had $1 million, if you had that nice fancy car that you always wanted, if you were married and had kids, is all that important right now? Nothing would be more important at that point in time than simply my health, because I was about to lose my health, and it became evident to me at a young age that without my health, without anybody's health, you're nothing. You're not here. If you're not healthy, you're not here. You're sick, you're diseased, you're not able to walk, whatever. Life's no fun. So at a young age, it was important to me that the health is the most important thing. I don't care about money and all these things as much as people value them in society of today. But I learned that without my health, you have absolutely nothing. So that kind of got me, started in this whole journey of learning about health, about eating healthy foods, and about literally growing the healthiest foods on the planet. And that's simply what I'm sharing with you guys. I'm really excited about this because this, to me, is truly the answer to healthcare, is changing your diet, eating more fruits and vegetables to prevent and reduce your chances of getting cancer in the first place. Instead of getting cancer and then trying to find the magic bullet to heal cancer, why not just eat the foods that are going to make you more resilient and give you a less chance of cancer, which are simply the fresh fruits and vegetables, including the leafy greens. There's products out there like, processed food products and, even things like eating animal products in excess will increase your percentage of getting cancer, whereas, healthy vegetables grown in your garden will reduce the percentage of cancer. And I don't know about you, but one of the things I, don't want is cancer. And I want to encourage everybody out there to eat cancer preventative diets instead of worrying about the drug or the chemotherapy or therapy or whatever after you get cancer to try to cure it, right? An ounce of prevention is worth 10 pounds of cure is one of the sayings that I've heard. And that's why literally I teach you guys how to grow the best stuff. I'm not wasting my time with growing animals because they are, intensive in their resources. You have to feed them so that you can eat them. I'm just growing stuff that's really easy to grow. They don't talk back. They don't bite back. They're not like having second kids, that you actually have to take care of and manage and make sure they're not eating your vegetables and all this stuff, right? It's just far easier to grow greens, and they're far more, beneficial. There's many studies out on the phytochemicals and phytonutrient properties of the leafy greens, how broccoli sprouts are anti-cancer, and how the onion and garlic family of plants are, have cancer-fighting compounds, and every different leafy green, and I'm growing a diversity here. I'm not just growing all lettuce, right? Every different leafy green has different phytochemicals and phytonutrients that the plants are making, for their benefit. Some of these nutrients protect the plants from bugs, some of them protect them from environmental stressors, whether that's, the sun or, disease or whatever. And then when we eat these plants, right, we're getting those beneficial phytonutrients and phytochemicals and antioxidants in us. And this is something that animal products simply do not have. So I know you might be thinking, John, you got 100 heads of lettuce in there, man. That's insane. That's like how you eat all that lettuce, right? So what I strive to do in my diet is maximize the amount of fruits and vegetables that I'm eating and minimize all the other things that I'm eating. So this means, like, if you're still eating animal products, and I'll never tell you guys what you should or shouldn't eat, but I will tell you guys how I've been living and what has been working for me, and that's to massively increase the amount of fruits and vegetables I eat. And yes, while this may be enough to feed a family or even an army, which I'll talk about in a second, I'll eat like 4 of these smaller heads of lettuce, for dinner a day. And even more so, I like to juice and blend them, and then I could really up my intake of these protective foods, to get them into me so I could get the benefits out of them. I mean, that's super important. Most people, like, a serving of lettuce is like the small side salad on their big piece of steak. I mean, I think America's got that completely backwards. We need to eat small amounts of meat, if you choose to do that, and large portions of salads and leafy greens, vegetables, and other fruits for optimal health. In fact, I mean, there's studies out there that prove that, the more fruits and vegetables you eat, the longer you're going to live, so minimally, I'd recommend 10 servings of fresh fruits and fresh vegetables a day. And of course, when you're growing them yourself, why not eat all this stuff? Because it's the best food on earth that you've literally grown for free. In addition, of course, there's the cancer and disease fighting properties of the vegetables and the fruits and the leafy greens, as well as the anti-aging properties. I mean, we're all struggling to, keep our youth as long as possible. And in my opinion, the fruits and vegetables will allow you to do just that. So another reason why I like to grow my leafy greens instead of other foods that I could possibly be growing is because it's one of the easiest things to grow. I mean, if you guys saw previously in the summit, Katrina Blair basically harvests wild weeds that just grow in cracks of sidewalks and will grow up literally anywhere man has disturbed the soil. And I mean, some of these weeds and leafy greens I grow will grow super simple, super easy. You literally throw the seeds out, maybe it even rains, it waters it, and it grows. You don't have to pay attention, you have to babysit it. Super simple, super easy. In addition, instead of growing like something like tomatoes, where you actually have to grow the plant, it has to make the greens first, and then actually has to set the flower, and then the flowers have to get pollinated, then have to set the fruit. That's a bit longer, whereas once you got some greens growing, as soon as the first set of 2 leaves appear, you can actually pluck it and eat it. Those are actually called, sprouts or microgreens. If you let them grow longer, at any stage, the leafy greens are prime time to be eaten. You could harvest them at any time. Yes, even when they're flowering, although they can get a bit stronger and more bitter. So that's why I, prefer my younger, more tender leafy greens that I'm growing here. So yeah, the requirements for growing the leafy greens, super simple, super easy. I mean, basically they just need a few things: sun, soil, and water, right? That's all you need. And I'm going to talk a special segment about the soil because, soil is not the same as dirt, and it's very important to have the proper kind and the best kind of soil mixture you can to grow your babies. I mean, just like if, the environment that we're grown up in, is basically how we turn out, right? And, the better environment we have as a child, if we're nurtured better and all this stuff, we're going to be healthier human beings in the end. And same thing with our plants. It kind of makes me sad in some cases where I see people just growing in their backyard dirt without doing any amendments and putting some chemical fertilizers in there, some miracle crap or something. Well, that way will work, right? It's not going to grow you the highest quality, most resilient, most genetically fully expressed plant that you could possibly have, in my opinion. So yeah, we're going to cover that in just a little bit, but yeah, super simple, super easy to grow your greens. Another reason why I like to grow my greens is simply because it's the most nutrient-dense food on the planet. I'll repeat that. It's the most nutrient-dense food on the planet. What does this mean? Does it mean it's the best? Well, in my opinion, it's one of the best foods on the entire planet. So the nutrient density index, or the ANDI scoring chart, stands for Aggregate Nutrient Density Index, was created by Dr. Joel Fuhrman. He has a really excellent book called Eat to Live that you may want to look up. I would recommend his dietary approach above all the others that I've seen to this date, and I'd follow something very similar to what he recommends, although I do it a little bit differently / better in my opinion. And basically what he's done is he's gone through all the different foods and he's ranked them for calories to nutrients and put them on a chart, because, you know, one thing is clear, you know, all this talk of longevity and how to live the longest. One of the things that always proves to be true is that the less calories you eat, the longer you're going to live, right? So the greens are the most nutritious plants that have the most vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, and phytonutrients with the least amount of calories. So this encourages longevity, plus you also get the benefit of the antioxidants to stay young, plus the phytochemicals and phytonutrients. They're going to help ward off disease so that you'll be healthier than the next person. So, you know, it's really cool that even George Washington, you know, back in the day when he had the soldiers and all this stuff, he told his soldiers, you know, in the camps to go around and harvest, you know, some of the wild weeds that are out there, such as the sorrel and whatnot, and eat those every day because they will basically ward away disease. I mean, that's simply what I'm teaching today. And, you know, George Washington, amazing guy. And, you know, I think we should definitely heed his words and eat some greens every day, especially if you're a soldier, because most of the time you're getting MREs that are not fresh and have much less nutrition, in my opinion, than, you know, fresh greens or weeds that you could find in the field. I mean, another amazing thing about greens, right? You need very little to grow them, right? Need very little. They're so easy. So my top reason for the greens being so important to me and my diet and teaching you guys how to grow them is because they're the #1 anti-disease food. You know, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention lately, but disease and cancer and diabetes and heart disease and all these other diseases, you know, that are plaguing Americans today, in my opinion, are strongly correlated with the diet you're eating. So if you're eating junk foods, you're going to have a junky immune system, and you're going to be more apt to get some kind of crazy disease, you know. So my goal, once again, is to be proactive in my approach and eat the foods, you know, that are going to prevent disease, you know, and that have active phytonutrients and phytochemicals that have been shown to prevent disease. I mean, there's no nutrients in chicken, for example, that'll ward off disease. Actually, it's shown that eating animal products, including meats, will increase your chances of getting cancer, whereas eating the leafy greens and other plant foods will decrease your amount of cancer. So, you know, I'm not one to like really mess around with products that don't work or diets that don't work. So I'm just sticking with the best diet on earth of the leafy greens so that I do not end up in the hospital again. Because what the doctors told me is that, I said, why did I get the spinal meningitis when I was leaving the hospital? And the doctor said, John, you have what's called complement immune deficiency. And what that is, to sum it up pretty quickly, for those of you guys that, this maybe dates me a little bit, that watched the Boy in the Bubble movie, maybe that's even on, you know, I don't know, Netflix these days, with John Travolta. Basically, there's a boy that had to live in a bubble, and if he was outside the bubble, he would lose his life and all this stuff because his immune system was so weak, like maybe like over on this side, being real weak, and then an average person's like really strong, and I'm like maybe somewhere in the middle. So because I had a chronically depressed immune system based on what the doctors said, I had to really pay attention and eat good food so that I wouldn't get sick again. And, you know, my disease prevention is not taking drugs and pharmaceutical drugs or getting addicted to any kind of drugs, but to eat literally nature's medicine. I mean, Hippocrates, the famous philosopher, said, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And that's simply what I'm doing by eating the most, you know, medicinally charged medicine on the entire world, which is simply the leafy greens. And that's what I want for every one of you guys out there too. If you don't get anything else from this episode, just start including more leafy greens in your diet, and you will be healthy because of it. I guarantee it. So why are the leafy greens and other plant foods so beneficial for us? It's because they contain different properties in the food, such as, you know, the lycopene, the zeaxanthin, the lutein, the antioxidants, the phytochemicals, the phytonutrients, sulforaphane. You know, there's all these different compounds that they've discovered in foods, and many of them are not even researched. I mean, even the cannabinoids in the the hemp or the cannabis plant that are beneficial when eaten in their raw state that have no psychoactive effects. I mean, what I'm for is I'm for eating all plants that will decrease the level of disease that people may get, and I'm all for making illegal and outlawing things that will make people unhealthy, because this is truly the answer to the sick care system we have, is just, once again, prevention. And that's just really important to me, and that's why I make all my videos free, because I want to be the change in the world that I want to see, and I want to encourage every one of you guys too, to start spreading the knowledge of growing your own food, and more importantly, eating the foods you grow before you spend any money at the grocery store. So I try to grow as much food as I can, get as much of this stuff into me as possible. And yes, I still need to buy foods at the grocery store, because on 5,200 square feet I'm not able to grow all the food I need, but I am able to grow all the greens and most of the vegetables I need year-round easily. And I know with my tips, you guys will be able to do that too. Reason number 5 why I like my greens as well as my fruits and vegetables, because the plant foods, they make you happy. I mean, they've done studies where if you eat 8 or more servings of fruits and vegetables a day, you will be happier than somebody who is not. And with all these different depressions and all these kids with all these messed up chemistries in their brain chemistry, I think the messed up chemistries is because simply people are not eating the right foods. And if you ever watch my show and all my videos, like, I'm generally a happy guy, and that's not because I'm token up on anything or using any drugs, because I don't believe in that. I just am high on life because I eat the foods that we're naturally designed to eat, that'll make us all happy and not depressed and not all angry because you're eating meat with hormones in it and all this kind of stuff, right? So eat some fruits and vegetables and be happy and enjoy your life more because of it. I think the next thing I want to do now is that I've shared with you guys some of the reasons why the greens are so important to me. I want to share with you guys some of the greens I grow and that you may want to grow as well. I think the first ones, my favorite ones, are actually my perennial vegetables that literally grow year-round and provide me with food 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 52 weeks in a year. So yeah, let's go head over to the other side of the garden and show you guys what they are. So where I am now is on the other side of my garden, where I basically just have 4-foot round circular raised beds that are maybe about 8 inches deep and filled with a really good soil mix. And what we're looking at there, I don't know if you guys see that, but it's the big massive in between the yellow flowers on that side and the yellow flowers on that side. This is known as perennial tree collards. So these are my green perennial tree collards, and as you guys can see, I mean, I'm far away from it right now, but you can just see the massive scale. It's almost as tall as my overhang, patio area. And that thing, it towers at, over 10 feet tall, and it's not even going erect because like the stalk kind of bends, so it would be taller if it was going straight up. I have some other ones right here hanging over. I mean, those guys are taller than me, maybe like pushing 7 feet tall. And these are known as perennial vegetables. So perennial vegetables, in my opinion, are the smartest vegetables that you guys could grow, because literally you plant them once, they'll continue to grow year after year, day after day, literally forever. Unlike a standard vegetables that you may see on the side and whatnot, they basically go to flower and seed and complete their life cycle. Then you have to actually start over, because once they go to flower and seed, they pretty much, that's the end of their life cycle, right? So in general, the perennial tree collards don't go to seed and set seed unless you have some weird climatic conditions. So in some cases I have had both my purple tree collards, which are a little bit tastier than the green ones, but the green ones are more hardy, set seed. And then once they do, go to flower, set the seed, and finish setting the seed, and when they're done making the seed, they basically just, the branch where the seeds is set, basically dry out, you cut them off, and then they basically continue to grow like it never set seed at all. Whereas most common annual vegetable crops, you'd have to actually grow them. They'd go to seed, like some of the bok choy and whatnot over here. And then basically it finishes up and it no longer makes the leaves, and you have to actually pull them and start over. So the perennial vegetables, much less work. And my favorite of all are the tree collards, both the purple kind there and the green kind that I'm able to harvest year-round in this mild climate. Now these plants will tolerate small levels of frost, but I haven't tested them in full frost areas, and if I did live in a frost area that got snow, I would definitely build a greenhouse around them, maybe even a double greenhouse, you know, or double hoop house, and you know, they'd probably be fine at that point. The other thing you might want to do if you want to grow these in a climate where you get snow is grow them in a big pot, bring them in the garage, you know, bring them in near a sunny windowsill so they don't get too cold in the winter time, so you guys could keep them year round. Now in general, these guys are propagated by the cuttings, so you just take a cutting, you stick it in the ground, and they root right up. I've had successes of 95% plus by just taking cuttings, sticking them in a raised bed that is getting watered. Then they basically just come up. I mean, it's super simple, super easy. You know, the occasional times that I have had they have gone to seed, and I do save the seeds, or the seeds drop and they grow out. They are not true to seed completely, although there's many characteristics of the tree collards in the new crops, you know, the seeds that were produced. So that one's an original one, and then the ones over here, I don't know if you guys could see them, but they're actually from seed drops. So I had some flowering kale and cabbage that are nice and ornamental, and somehow that cross-pollinated with my green tree collards, and now I have some really pretty ornamental green tree collards that have really cool looking leaves on it, and you know, have been growing pretty much perennially, but also they have a strong tendency to go to flower. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens after they go to flower, set seeds, and if they continue to produce leaves or if they fizzle out. Yeah, so grow some perennial vegetables. Let's get into some other perennial vegetables that I like to grow in my garden year round. What we're looking at now are some plants that I've actually had to dig up you know, over the winter and put in a little greenhouse so they would stay warmer, because these are you know, tropical perennial leafy green vegetables, and these are just two of many I have researched in the past. And if you guys live somewhere in the tropics like South Florida, maybe like Brownsville, Texas, San Padre Island, or maybe even places like San Diego, Southern California, you may be able to grow some of these guys year round. And these are the easiest vegetables to grow, and also they taste so good, and there's many different medicinal properties to them. And so these I'll be planting out really soon again in my garden. We're not past the official frost date yet, but we probably aren't going to get any frost, since today's like in the 70s, and later this week it's supposed to be in the 80s. So that's really cool. But what we have here are two of my favorite perennial leafy green tropical style plants. This one is known as the Gynera procums, and I do have episodes on all of these. I'm not going to really go into a lot of detail on these guys, but it's like a nice you know, perennial leafy green that has a nice mild flavor that's been used traditionally, you know, for healing for, you know, literally thousands of years. This next one is actually known as the Okinawan spinach. It has actually a purple on the bottom. Oh, and it's a little bit dry. I need to water this guy. But this is another perennial leafy green vegetable that can be grown year round, you know, and if you live in a place like that gets cold in the winter, you're definitely going to want to bring this in. You know, basically I just dig up the big root ball, put in a pot, put in my greenhouse. This is an unheated greenhouse, but it's still in my greenhouse. It stays quite warm. So if you're growing this in a, you know, climate that does have snow, you're going to definitely want to bring it in and keep it warm, because these guys really do not like the cold. I mean, there's all different kinds of perennial leafy green vegetables, you know, and I've had to learn and research and try new and different ones to grow in the desert to see which ones will do fine in the desert heat that can be in excess of 100 degrees and low humidity, you know, for literally weeks, if not like months on end in the summertime. And these are two proven winners that have been working for me. I guess the last perennial leafy green vegetable that I want to share with you guys is actually over in the shady area. And I want to encourage you guys to use all the different microclimates that you have. Don't just think, oh man, John, I got a shady spot, man, this sucks, because you're supposed to grow in full sun. Well, some crops actually like, you know, shade more than the full sun, so I use that and exploit that to my advantage to grow some crops that might not normally grow in full sun by using the shade. And of course they don't grow quite as fast, but they grow well. So let's head over and share with you guys what I got. So the last perennial leafy green in my climate that I want to share with you guys is probably one of the most powerful and unknown leafy green vegetables that I believe you guys should be eating on a regular day. I mean, they have specific studies that show this guy right here. This is known as the Ashitaba or Angelica keys, special kind of Angelica with special properties that has been being grown in Hashijo Island in Japan, that has a rich volcanic soil, and it's basically literally a wild food that has been grown and cultivated that the Japanese have been eating for thousands of years now. and I'm glad I finally got some seeds and am able to grow it now. And I mean, this, it just, even in the hot desert environment here, and it's under a shady spot, maybe get some indirect sun, as you guys can see, it's growing quite well, looks super vibrant and super healthy. And this is a really healing leafy green, even probably more so than the other ones I've already shared with you guys. Plus it has a real mild flavor. I mean, the reason why I like it, and we're just going to go ahead and break off a stem here for you guys. If we go ahead and cut a stem, and then we just leave it for a little bit, and this is a little baby stem, and I always encourage you guys to eat your baby greens. They're always more tender, and that's the ones you should always pick for the salads. And if you want to eat some of the larger ones, you know, those are better to be blended or juiced, which we'll show you guys in a little bit. But if you look very close, I don't know if you guys could see that, it's starting to bleed. And you know, if you cut us, we bleed red. If you cut the Ashitaba, it actually bleeds yellow. And the yellow is known as the chalcones. And these are very, you know, basically plant protective nutrients that's like anti-disease for us. And this, in my opinion, is something Americans are not getting every day in their diet. You know, literally eating anti-cancer plants, you know, rich in chalcones. Wow, quite good. A little bit bitter today. Tastes kind of like celery, depending on where you grow it, how the climate is. I've had it. Tastes real mild. Kind of reminds me like between some this bite here reminds me of some celery and dandelion at the same time. So that's quite interesting. Normally I've had this and it's really quite mild in my other garden. But nonetheless, you know, glad to get some anti-cancer and anti-disease properties out of the foods that I'm able to grow in my backyard anywhere instead of having to take drugs. So delicious. Yeah, the Ashitaba, one of my top picks. I do have an episode dedicated to the Ashitaba. The seeds can be difficult to find, but I want to encourage all you guys out there to grow it if you're serious about being healthy. All right, next, these are just some of the perennials I have, and I probably have a few other perennials that I could show you guys, but I want to get into the more of the annual crops. And these are the crops that, you know, many people are more familiar with. The plants that you have to actually plant, harvest, and then replant. So, you know, I want to give you some close-up shots of my lettuce and my brassica bed and my mixed bed, and then also go over to share like my 3 top vegetable crops that you should grow and that are easiest to grow no matter where you live. All right, so I like to grow different crops in different areas of my garden, and you know, I like to grow different plants for different reasons. You know, number one, I always encourage you guys to grow a variety of crops, and I will be sharing with you guys, you know, my 3 top crops you could grow that are super simple, super easy. You know, I also think once you graduate from some of these crops, you move on to grow different things. You know, like for example, take a look at my lettuce bed. We'll go ahead and give you a pan shot of that. I mean, I'm growing over 100 heads of lettuce, mixed varieties, like about half a dozen different varieties, in one 4-foot by 16-foot bed. The next bed, I have things like broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage growing with sugar snap peas growing up a trellis. And then finally, I have a bed of lettuce and Napa type cabbage, arugula, and some radicchio in yet another bed. But you know, those are fun to play with. They also tend to bolt fairly fast, which means they're high maintenance. It's like that girlfriend you might have went off that always had to do her makeup right before you went out, and she'd waste a half hour in doing makeup, right, instead of just going out and having fun. And yeah, I guess there's a point to makeup and all that stuff, but I'm kind of a more pragmatic guy myself, so I'm glad my girlfriend doesn't wear makeup actually at all. She doesn't need it either. Hi, honey. But anyways, these guys here, this is kind of like more like a, you know, low maintenance girlfriend, like the girl I ended up with, and hopefully I even marry. This is known as the dinosaur kale. And the dinosaur kale, I like it because it's a really resilient crop, especially here in the desert. It could do well in drier climates. And I don't know if you guys could see this, but I even got, you know, dinosaur kale trees here that are a bit tall. I mean, these ones were planted this season, just a few months ago, and this guy is like over a year old at this point. You know, he's been growing for an entire year. He hasn't gone to flower or set seed, and he's been producing food for me for literally the last year. So I mean, imagine investing in a plant like a lettuce plant that you'll grow for maybe, I don't know, 45 days, and then it's done. You got to pull it, you got to replant and all this kind of stuff. Or you could plant some dinosaur kale that are going to be almost a perennial, and this of course depends on your climate. And the dinosaur kale leaves, I love them a lot because they're dark and rich green, which is rich in chlorophyll, which is very similar to our blood. It is said that, you know, chlorophyll-rich foods help detoxify us in this age of all these environmental toxins in the chemtrails and in the water you drink and in who knows what else, you know, the beauty care products you use. You know, the leaves are super detoxifying so that they'll keep you healthy. And the dinosaur kale, one of the easiest things to grow that'll grow for a long season, you know, based on my experience, without having to, you know, do a lot of maintenance and caring after it. So the next crop you want to grow, if you want to have another low maintenance crop, and this is another one that grows minimum for a year for me in most instances, and actually sets its own seeds, the seeds drop, and then they come up randomly in my garden. And that's the kind of garden I want to have. It's literally called a hands-off garden, where you actually just let nature do all the work and let them reproduce themselves so that you don't have to sit there and plant things like I've planted in this whole area. I planted onions, you know, but I had this plant here that's actually shading out some of my onions, just come up on its own, and, you know, it's a volunteer plant, and I just didn't have the heart to pull it out because it is making some amazing food for me. And look at this, what we have here, some nice Swiss chard, nice large leaves. And this is another crop that's very resilient and can be grown in many places. This happens to be like a standard green Swiss chard. I have like a red one, a pink one, and different colors coming up all over the garden, you know, literally as weeds that I actually did not plant. So yet, you know, this is yet another crop you can grow. You know, super simple, super easy, and besides just using the leaves, which you can actually, you know, juice up, eat in salads or whatnot, I like to also use the large leaves as wraps, you know, the top green part, and then the lower stalk part I like to use as celery. It's very high in the minerals, has a nice salty flavor, and can, you know, spice up some foods when you want a little bit of salt without adding actually additional salt. That, in my opinion, in too high of amounts is not a good thing, and most processed foods have far too much salt, and I would encourage you guys to eat more plant foods and eat some Swiss chard that has a nice salty flavor without the additional, you know, shaking on the salt in your diets so you can get healthier. So the last crop I want to share with you guys that's super simple, super easy to grow, not because it lasts a long time, but because it's like pretty much like if you go out to a bar, you meet a girl, you have fun with her that night, then you take off, you never see her again, or she didn't even know your name. Many of you guys have done that. I don't think I've ever done that actually. But this plant is kind of like that, right? It's like a really crop that you could actually plant a seed, and then it'll grow pretty quick, provide you with some food, and then it's gone, you know, and then you gotta start over. But in general, it's a fast grower. It produces copious amounts of greens and some good food. Plus it's nice and spicy, kind of like that Latina girl I used to go out with. And this is actually known as the arugula. So arugula, another really easy to grow crop that you can grow quickly and easily. And then you're just gonna have to keep replanting. I mean, the amazing thing about arugula is because it does, you know, it's starting to go to seed here on me. Here's some bigger ones here. It actually will make seeds, drop seeds, and then they'll actually start coming up, you know, wild in your garden. You'll have basically arugula forever, and then you'll think it's dumb that people buy, you know, 1 pound of arugula, you know, spring mix boxes or whatever for like $6 to $8 in the store. Super simple to grow, amazing flavor, and it's something that I think all you guys should at least put a few leaves in your salad every night to give it a little bit of spice. And y'all know what that is if you got the Latin girl. So now that I've shared with you guys my top 3 plants to grow, I want to talk about the soil. You know, here's a bed that is going to bolt. It's our early planting of my broccoli and whatnot. And you know, I'm digging up the soil and adding new soil. You know, soil is not the same as dirt, and the health of your plants comes down to the health of the soil. And even in many organic gardening practices, you know, there are things being done that I may not necessarily agree with based on, you know, my research, my experience, and actually going around and visiting farms and seeing what's truly works and what's actually more sustainable than not, and more importantly for me, enabling me to grow the highest quality plants. You know, as you guys know, I got into growing my greens for my health. I'm not growing my greens for fun, you know, for, you know, enjoyment or to sell. I'm growing them so that I can have the highest level of health and have the highest level of nutrients in the foods I'm growing that then will, you know, transfer into me so I could be more disease resistant, you know, myself, as will my plants if they're grown with all the nutrients they need, right? And so that's what I strive to teach, and now I'm going to show you guys 3 nutrients, that should be added to your soil that you're probably not already. And this is quite sad. I mean, for a long time we're always told as organic gardeners, we need to use compost, compost, compost. And yes, compost is king, and some of these things that I'm going to show you guys are literally queens of getting good growth. And besides just the bacterial dominated thermally based compost, there's also a fungally dominated compost that's not often talked about. And I visited a garden that I made an episode on where literally, in this garden they had, dinosaur kale leaves larger than my head. And the only reason I could explain this is because one of the nutrients that I'm sharing with you guys next, but also the fungal dominated compost, that's imperative, because I think that's one of the keys that's missing in this day and age, although I'm not going to get into it in this short presentation I have today. Be sure to check my YouTube channel for more episodes on specifically what I put in my soil, because I do use more than this, but these are the basics, the keys that I believe every one of you guys watching should be using to grow your greens, fruits and vegetables, and even forage crops if you're growing forage crops, because yes, it will make a difference. Alright, so when I put a soil blend together, I generally use things like compost, and then I'll add a lot of worm castings in there. Obviously my goal is to get worms in my garden, and I have plenty of worms in my garden, basically breaking down, root matter that's in the ground, and other fiber and all these things in the ground. They're breaking that down, making more nutrients for my plants. But I also believe that by adding certain kinds of worm castings can be quite beneficial. And not all worm castings are created equal, much like not all hamburgers are created equal. A hamburger at McDonald's is the bottom of the bunch. If you have an In-N-Out burger, you might know that those are higher quality. Not that I'm recommending eating hamburgers, but you guys know what I mean. And so the Worm Gold Plus worm castings are some of the most efficient and best worm castings that I've seen. They have documented studies that'll basically, these worm castings will increase your yields up to 400%. And that's completely insane, and that's because these worms are fed a special diet. And I have an episode where I talked to the owner of this company, an engineer that figured out and formulates this and figured out what to feed his worms. So I'm not going to get into that in this episode. But yeah, know that the Worm Gold Plus, my favorite worm castings, and whether you want to add these directly to your soil, that's great. You could also use this as a base to make your own compost teas, which is yet another way to get the nutrients into your soil, more specifically the biologics. And that's what I teach. I don't just teach organic gardening using organic fertilizers out of a bag, which in most cases are actually manure-based or animal product-based, which I think are not the best things to use. I'm teaching you guys organic biologic gardening. We're really using biology to our advantage. And if you think about it, in a forest system, right, they're not spraying even organic fertilizers down or chemical fertilizers, right? There's basically, even in just this handful of soil here, there's more microbes in the soil than there are people on the earth easily. And it's these microbes that break down old woody decayed matter, the old roots in the soil, and they turn it into nutrients for the plants. And this is what drives the system. And so the worm castings to me are literally full of the biology that drives my whole system, my whole organic gardening style, to produce nutrients for my plants instead of feeding them a water soluble nutrient like many fertilizers are. Now, besides just the biology, another thing that's missing, in my opinion, of the soils of today, and I've seen this time and time again when I use these supplements in my soil, is simply trace minerals. So here we have the Cascade trace minerals, and this is a varied source of trace minerals. It's not just as magnesium, or not just a calcium, or not just an iron. It has a full spectrum of minerals. Some different rock dust contains like 70 different trace minerals, all in small and varying amounts, and the soils are degraded of their minerals in this day and age because of the topsoil degradation due to improper farming practices, improper tilling practices, and all the runoff going into the oceans, all this kind of stuff. That's why I like to add the rock dust, whether it's the Cascade minerals, the azomite, or the Elamite, some of the other different brands that are out there. Super important, super critical, because with the trace minerals, we're feeding not only the plants, but also the microbes in the soil that go nuts for this stuff, so you'll increase your microbial count in your soil, which are literally your workers that are making food for your plants. Super important, super critical. Aside from the rock dust, another way I like to get my minerals in, because I think it is so important, as I mentioned, you know, the topsoils are degraded, all the minerals have been washed out into the ocean. I like to use an ocean solution, whether that's the C90 agricultural minerals I have here, or another water-based, you know, ocean solution, ocean-grown, you know, product. Super important, and you know, besides just spraying that in the little root zone, and it's very important when using the sea minerals to get the proper dilution ratio, because yes, these do contain some sodium, and too much sodium for us as well as our plants could really not be a good thing. And you know, I like to do this maybe like once every 2 weeks. I like to do a soil drench plus a foliar feed. So I'll spray it on, you know, the plants, on the leaves, tops and bottoms of the leaves. And in general, I like to do the foliar feed, you know, in the evening before the sundown, you know. That way I find it gets the most level of uptake. And literally our plants will respond by feeding them trace minerals, because, you know, the weakest link in a plant is a nutrient it's not getting. And standard agricultural science, which, you know, I'm not a scientist, I didn't graduate from horticulture school, as I mentioned, you know, they say, oh, your plants need 16 nutrients or minerals, you know, or whatever to grow. And, you know, why did God, nature, whomever put, you know, 70 to 90 different minerals, you know, in the ocean solutions and in trace minerals, you know, if plants don't need those, right? So, and I want to use these. I'm not the scientist, so I don't know what ratios to put them in. I'm just putting them in nature's ratios into my plants. And I have seen, and many of my viewers have seen, you know, time and time again, the plants are more healthy, they're more disease resistant, they're more nutritious, they taste better, they grow larger. You know, all these things, they're only a benefit. And if you're skeptical about this because you've never heard about this before, you know, that's cool. All I would ask is that you guys try it. Try it in one raised bed, try some of the things I recommend in one raised bed, and don't do it in the rest of your garden. I don't care. Grow some of the same crops and see the difference, and see the yield difference, see the health of the plant difference. I mean, the whole goal for me in growing biologic organic gardening is to have the healthiest plants, because much like us, right? If you're healthy and you have a strong immune system, you're eating foods that prevent and fight disease, and you go onto an airplane where everybody's sick and they got, you know, some disease or coughing, you're not going to get sick, because we all have built-in immune systems. And, you know, plants, in my opinion, in this day and age, especially plants grown under, you know, agriculture and industrialized agriculture, right? They're not as healthy as they can be, because they're not really focusing on plant health. They're focusing on like a number. They're making produce. They're growing produce so they could chop it, sell it, and make some money. And, you know, in most cases, they just want to have the plant alive long enough so that they could sell it and they could make a buck, right? Whereas you guys at home could do a little bit differently and hopefully do it better. And that's what I share on my channel. And, you know, this is what I've all learned through trial and error over the many years I've been doing this. And nobody else I know has my specific experience and my level of detail and my common words that I use, because I'm not a scientist, you know, but I have access to people that I interview all the time that I'm learning from, that I can also share with you guys. So now that I shared with you guys the top 3 easy greens to grow, the top 3 nutrients that you want to add to your soil and to your garden, I'm now going to share with you guys 3 ways to use the crops that you're growing to increase your health. So now this is the part that I'm most excited about, sharing with you guys how I use my greens, because I know many of you guys have been growing greens for so long and don't know how to use them. So, you know, there's so many different ways you could use them. I'll mention some of those, you know, in this next clip, but I'm going to share with you guys my top 3 favorite ways to include more leafy greens in your diet, because you're growing them, right? But how do you use them? How do you get them into use so that you can derive the health benefits from them? So in any case, we're looking at my bed with lots of different lettuce and some arugula and some Chinese Napa cabbage. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a juice, and we're going to basically juice some greens out of my garden, cucumber and some apples. That's one recipe, so juicing, really excellent. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then the second recipe we're going to make is we're going to use the blender to make what's called a green smoothie. And for that, actually, we're going to go ahead and harvest some of these arugula leaves. Give it a nice and hot and spicy flavor. And we're going to harvest some of my very own tree collards. So let me go ahead and harvest some of these cabbage greens. And we'll get over at the juicer set up in the greenhouse, show you guys how to do it. So now I'm going to share with you guys my 2 top favorite ways to utilize the foods I eat, including the greens from my garden. Number 1 top way above all others has to be juicing here. I have all kinds of different greens from my garden. I have copious amounts. And instead of buying food at the grocery store, I want to grow my own. It is quite hard and difficult to eat so many greens. So that's why, like a juicer, we have here the Omega VSJ 843 juicer. This is called a slow juicer. So the slow juicers maximize nutrition and give you a good quality, high quality juice with the minimal oxidation due to the low speed. In addition, these auger style machines, which is what this is, uses a single auger that literally crushes and squeezes all the nutrients out of the juice, leaving the fiber behind. And there are pros and cons to consuming fiber in your diet. I mean, if you guys are still eating animal products, there's no fiber in animal products, so it's probably good to consume some fiber in that sense. I eat, plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables that contain plenty of fiber, so I get plenty of fiber in my diet. And I like to juice about once a day to remove the fiber, because when you remove the fiber, you make all the nutrients in the produce more available so that your body could uptake it better. There are studies that show, compared to like a blender, the slow juicer will extract and have 50% more cancer fighting power in, broccoli, for example. Blending is still good. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but juicing is the best of all. So, and juicing really concentrates. I mean, this is like almost a dozen leaves. I got 10 leaves here that I harvested out of my garden just now. And this will allow me to get the nutrients out of 10 leaves into me without eating all this extra fiber. So I guess that's what we're going to do next. We're going to go ahead and juice the 10 cabbage leaves. We're going to juice 1 cucumber and 2 apples for some sweetness, all through the Omega VSJ juicer. All right, we just got about all this stuff cut up. Now we're just going to go ahead and turn this machine on and let the juicer do the magic. One of the things I like about the Omega VSJ 843 juicer is that it is actually quite quiet. It's not like one of them high-speed juicers that sounds like an airplane taking off in your kitchen, as it has been described to me. I do want to give you guys a disclaimer. For a living I do sell juicers, so I teach you guys how to grow your own food, and I sell the appliances that will allow you to get these healthy foods into your life. If you want to support me and my work, you can do that by supporting me and buying a juicer from me, which will also support your health, in my opinion. And you can do that at discountjuicers.com. So what we're doing now is we're simply just putting in a handful of each of the different items. We're rotating the items so the juicer likes different textures to be put through it. So a little bit of the leaves, a little bit of apple, and then we'll follow that by a cucumber. And as you guys can see, we got that delicious juice coming right out, all the phytochemicals and phytonutrients out of the juice into an easy to assimilate form for us. I'm going to go ahead and continue making the rest of this juice, and I'll be back at you when I'm done. So I'm just about to juice the last handful of cabbage here, fresh picked from my garden. And every one of these different plant foods has different properties. And when I got into juicing in the 1990s, I heard Jay Kordich, the father of juicing, teach me something. He said he worked with Dr. Garnett Cheney at Stanford University with juicing cabbage and giving that to the patients. And if the patients drank the cabbage juice, within minutes after making, it would heal their ulcers, which is completely amazing. But if the juice sat around, then it wouldn't have the same beneficial effect. So for that reason, I recommend you guys, juice a wide variety of the leafy greens from your garden, which may have different, benefits for you, but more importantly, drink it as soon as you can after you make it. I guess the final thing we're going to go ahead and put in here is the cucumber and let it juice right up. Now, I've made plenty of nasty juices in my time, so I like to share with you guys a recipe that's always going to be tried and true and work fairly well and not taste gross, right? And so what I like to do is usually use like a lot of celery or cucumbers, which oftentimes I have in my garden. In the summer I have plenty of cucumbers, and in the wintertime I have plenty of celery. So we do a celery or cucumber base, which is the majority of the juice. Maybe an apple or 2 for some sweetness, and then do some leafy greens. And the amount of leafy greens you do is based on you. I did 10 today because that's like where I'm at. But if you're not used to the strong flavor of leafy greens, you might want to put 1 or 2 in with all that celery or cucumber and apple, and that's going to dilute it down. Of course, you could use celery, cucumber, and apple, you know, or you could even substitute in carrots instead of the celery or the cucumber. Or sometimes I like to juice romaine hearts. You know, that's another good way to make a nice watery juice that's going to be more agreeable to you instead of taste bad. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and shut this juicer off, put this little cap down, and we got probably about 32 ounces of fresh juice. We're going to go ahead and pour that in. Mason jar for me. Look at that nice consistency. We removed all the fiber. That's over here in the pulp catch container, and this is good to feed your worms or for your compost pile. And we're going to go ahead and drink this juice. Nice mild flavor. To me, that almost like tastes like you're drinking water. I mean, you get a little bit of sweetness because for the apples aren't super sweet. You get all the nice water and electrolytes content from the celery, and of course you get all the phytonutrients and phytochemicals from the cabbage that I grew. So yeah, to your health. So besides just juicing, which I believe is better than blending overall, blending does have a place in my diet, and I blend almost every day as well, blending plenty of leafy greens. And what I want to share with you guys next is a very simple recipe called a green smoothie. You know, this was a concept made up popular by Ann Wigmore originally, and then Victoria Botenko made it really huge and really popular. And basically the green smoothie is basically blending something like some fruits. I got some bananas today, and some greens fresh picked from my garden, and something as simple as water. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to go ahead and first you know, put a bunch of filtered water in the blender. You could also use something like coconut water. Fill that up to like 500 milliliters. We're going to go ahead and take a couple of ripe bananas, and for fun, besides using just the standard ripe bananas, you could also use some frozen ripe bananas. So you'd basically peel your bananas, and then you'd actually freeze them and then put them in the smoothie, and that'll give you a nice milkshake style consistency, and it'll also make your smoothie colder, you know, and that's especially nice on a hot summer day. So let's go ahead and put this ripe banana in here. We're going to put a total of 4 bananas, and once again, you know, these recipes are not like carved in stone. You guys could adjust these. If you got 3 bananas, hey, use 3. You know, if you got 5 and you're really hungry, you know, put a few extra one in. So yeah, let's see, let's go ahead and throw this last banana in there. And then finally we're going to go ahead and add all our leafy greens. So when we add our leafy greens, I got about 10 tree collard leaves and a few arugula leaves. I like to basically just break it up into smaller pieces so the blender will have an easier time blending it up. Put the top on there, and you know, I like using a high power blender, you know, a standard household blender you get at Walmart for 20-25 bucks. I mean, that'll work, but it'll leave nice large chunks. I mean, one of our goals you know, is that we want to break down the food as to the smallest particle size so that our bodies could get the nutrients out of it. You know, our little villi and our intestines literally, you know, suck nutrients out of the food as it passes by, but only if it's in a liquid state. So we need to basically break open all the hard cell walls of the leaves and the Vitamix. This time is my favorite blender to do that. Gonna go ahead and turn that on. It's on low, then we're gonna crank it to high. Alright, looks like we're blended. We're gonna go ahead and shut this baby off, and check it out. We got a nice, delicious green smoothie in here. Now I do want to let you know that the blender runs at like in excess of 20,000 RPMs. The juicer over on this side runs at like 43 RPM. So that's a multitude of difference. Because the blender is running so fast, it introduces oxygen. The oxygen basically lowers the nutrition in the food. Now that being said, yes, a blended smoothie is far better than any kind of processed food, junk food, and animal food you could eat, but juicing is just a little bit better. So look at the consistency on this green smoothie here. Nice and smooth. You can see like literally the air bubbles in there because that's what it's added, but it's done a really good job at breaking this stuff down. I mean, these are just 2 of my favorite ways to include the vegetables and use some of the other produce that I'm growing in my garden. Of course, my third favorite way to use the produce in my garden is simply pick it, eat it, and enjoy it. You know, many times I'm out in the garden, I'm just grazing like a cow, right? I just pick greens and eat it. You know, I got sugar snap peas coming on right now. Just pick them and eat them. They are so delicious. Of course, you could also make other things like salads, and I love to make soups with them. You know, my soups use like my juicer to make a soup base, and then I just, you know, blend that up with some additional ingredients. I mean, there's so many different ways you can use the food you grow so that you guys could eat. You know, some of my other ways that I like to use the food I grow is, number one, fermentation. So I like to pickle the food that I'm growing. And this increases its nutrition content, especially due to the beneficial probiotics that are contained within. Super important. Another favorite way is to dehydrate them. So I love to make things like kale chips and broccoli chips and red vein sorrel chips by basically just using the leaves, putting like a dressing that I would maybe make in the blender, such as a handful of macadamia nuts and some orange juice blended up with some herbs and spices, maybe some taco seasoning, and paste that on the leaves, and then dehydrate the leaves into some delicious kale chips. So now I can get more greens from my garden into me. The next and last part of this video I'd like to talk about is how you can grow your greens if you don't have space outside to grow a garden. It's simply growing sprouts and microgreens. So now I want to share with you guys a very simple way to grow your own food. It's actually just called sprouting, and you could do this in your very kitchen even if you don't have an outside, and grow your own greens. Super simple, super easy. You know, there are many seeds that can be used for sprouting seeds, and the easiest way to learn this is to go down to any grocery store and look for little sprouts that they sell. You know, oftentimes they'll sell like alfalfa sprouts, clover sprouts, you know, various certain kinds of bean sprouts. Some beans, if you sprout them, can be quite toxic and get you sick. So I do recommend being careful with the beans. You know, onion sprouts, broccoli sprouts, those are some of the more common ones, you know, that you can easily do. One of my favorite is actually just the buckwheat sprouts. If you go to your standard health food store, you could get the hulled buckwheat, raw, not roasted, and these are the seeds that you need to make your own buckwheat sprout. So in general, these buckwheat sprouts that I grow with the hulled seeds, grow tails maybe when they're about a 1/4 inch. That's when they're ready to be harvested and eat them. You can grow them longer like I have here, and they will even actually start to form roots and get green. And, you know, so these, generally the way that I'm sharing with you guys how to sprout is just to make them little baby greens when they're nice and small, and then you're just going to eat them, you know. So within 5 days you could have some sprouts ready. These guys will be ready probably within 2 or 3, you know, in my climate. Of course, the temperature that you need to sprout in is very important. You know, the sprouts and the microgreens that we'll talk about next actually like the temperatures that we like to live in. So if you have air conditioning in the summer and heating in the winter time, you know, and if it's comfortable for you, it's going to be comfortable for the sprouts. So that's something real cool. You know, you don't need any kind of special air conditioning or heating or anything like that. Just standard stuff that you would be comfortable in. Same will the sprouts be. So anyways, how to do this is very simple. We're just going to take some out of my jar here. And I like to use the 24-ounce mason jar. Oh, we put too much in there. Let's put some back. We're just going to go ahead and put a little bit on the bottom here. And one of the amazing thing about the sprouts is that they expand. You know, so even if we're just putting a little bit in here now, they're going to soak, they're going to puff up, they're going to grow into more. And it's to be quite a bit of food. So besides just the seeds, you know, we need some water for it to germinate. I got about 2 cups of water in here. And we're basically just, this is the first step of sprouting. You know, you've got to soak your seeds. You know, and the kind of seed that you're soaking will be dependent on how long you're going to have to actually soak them. So, you know, on the buckwheat, you could soak them actually for about an hour or 2. They don't need to be soaked that long. Then what you're going to do after you soak them, you're going to go ahead and put this special top on that's available online. You can buy it in many health food stores. It just fits on the standard wide mouth mason jar. Once you're done soaking these, then I'm just going to pretend like I've been soaking these for a while, which I haven't. And then basically all you're going to do is you're going to go over the sink, or even better yet, go over your garden, and you're just going to pour out the water. Once you pour out all the water, then you're going to want to basically take all the seeds and get them lined up all the way along the bottom of the jar. This is very important because what you want to do is you want to allow for the most aeration inside the jar. You're also going to tip the jar up at a little angle so that any leftover water will actually drip out. You know, and then all you're going to simply do is just keep this in ambient light. You don't need to put lights on or anything like that. You know, sprouts are very easy. You're just basically going to use some I like to use filtered water to basically rinse these guys out like 3 times a day, and you know, get them a little bit wet, rinse them out, and then just leave them sit like this, you know, on the counter at a little bit of an angle to drain all the excess water off. And in just a few days, you know, you're going to have your own sprouts to eat. And that's simply amazing, you know, an easy way everybody in the country could grow some food by simply sprouting. No matter if it's the winter, the summer, no matter where you live, sprouting is an easy way to grow your food. So the next thing I want to do is actually show you guys, it's like advanced topic. Sprouting, super simple. Microgreens is really where it's at. Microgreens are 4 to 40 times more nutritious than the full-size greens. You know, so I have broccoli here, and the broccoli microgreens are more nutritious than the large broccoli. So that means you could eat less of them to get the same health benefits. Plus, the microgreens are nice and tender, and they are much easier to digest. So anyways, let's go ahead and put this away and show you guys how to grow some microgreens. Alright, so now we're going to share with you guys how to grow some microgreens, and it really is that easy. The first thing I'm going to go over with you guys are the supplies that you're going to need. Literally, you're just going to need some of these nursery flats with no holes in the bottom. You know, then next you're going to need either something like this. This is a Sure to Grow pad. You could also use a Knaf fiber pad if you want to do more natural and compostable. Or you could use something like the Coconut Coir soil. I'm going to be sprouting seeds and growing them a hydroponic method this time, not in soil. There's certain seeds you can grow in a hydroponic fashion, and certain seeds are better grown, you know, in the soil fashion. Another thing, of course, you're going to need to grow the microgreens are the seeds. So we got some handy pantry seeds, the Radish Sango. I like the Handy Pantry company. They can provide you full-on microgreen kits that work really well. They make it really easy, and they have high quality seeds. And as a bonus, if you call them to order, it's handypantry.com. Call them to order and tell them you want the GYG or Growing Your Green special to give you a special discount for you guys that I've negotiated for you guys. Of course, for the microgreens, you're also going to need some water. I'm using a purified water here. We got about 4 cups of water right here. And you're going to need also a spray bottle. And then finally, you're also going to need some pH test strips. Now this, if you don't remember anything else about growing microgreens, you're going to want to remember you got to pH balance your water. Super critical, super important for optimal success. You know, your water coming in your tap, even if it is filtered, may be at the wrong pH, and then your sprouts are not going to have the ideal conditions to grow. So, you know, we're going to test our pH, and if required, we're going to take some vinegar here, you know, and balance our pH out, you know, if it is too high. So I guess first we're going to go ahead and just take out one of these test strips. These are similar test strips that actually you can test your own body's pH, and we want to be, you know, mostly alkaline in our bodies, but this water for growing the microgreens, we want it more acid. So we're going to just take this strip, dunk it in there, get a little bit of water on there, and then we're just going to go ahead and let this change color if it's going to change color, and see where we end up at. Alright, so for me, this looks like we're approximately at like a 6. So this appears to be an ideal pH. This is just the water out of my reverse osmosis system. So that's pretty good. It didn't even change the color of the strip hardly. So that's quite good. If it was too, you know, alkaline, we want to add, you know, some of the vinegar there. So yep, looks like we're good. So the next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and take out the pad, and we're going to pour in about 2 cups of water into our tray here. So that's about half the water that I have in here. That's about 2 cups. And we're just going to make sure all the different channels in here are fully saturated and it's distributed evenly. Then we're going to go ahead and put our Sure to Grow pad in there and just tap this down to make sure the pad absorbs all the water, you know, and it's all even. So it's evenly moist all the way around, so you don't have any dry spots. Then we're going to go ahead and take our pH balanced water and pour that into the spray bottle here. We'll go ahead and pour it over here so I don't drip or anything. And the other thing is you want to make sure you use a clean spray bottle, guys. Super important. You don't want any contamination, you know, in there. And I recommend actually buying a new one that can be found at like dollar stores for $1. Then we're going to go ahead and put the top on, and then we're simply going to do like about 10 sprays. If we get a good spray. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, so now that we got this sprayed down, the next thing is, you know, we got the moisture for the seeds. Now we need to get the seeds. So next, to grow microgreens, you just need the seeds, and there's many different seeds you can choose from. The Handy Pantry has an amazing selection of seeds. Some of my favorite style seeds to grow are the Brassica family of plants, including arugula, broccoli, cabbage, radish, kohlrabi, all these kind of things, because in general they're going to grow pretty fast, and actually the radish is one of the quickest of them all. So the amount of seeds you use is going to be dependent on the size of the seed. So for smaller seeds such as broccoli and, you know, I don't know, cabbage seeds and arugula seeds that tend to be smaller, you're going to want to use about 2 tablespoons up to about 3 tablespoons. Because these radish seeds are actually quite large, we're going to use about 1/4 cup. So I have a measuring cup here, and we're just going to go ahead and pour in about to 1/4 cup of the radish seeds. Looks like that's about it, maybe a few more. And this is a very important step here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and spread these seeds out on this flat here. And it's very important, you know, you want to try to get even distribution. So I'm just going to kind of pour out the little spout here. And just try to get only a few to come out at a time. And try to just, you know, fill every square inch of the tray. So like they're not all clumped in one corner, right? As evenly as you could possibly get them. And put them down a few at a time. Now if you're anal, you could probably take tweezers and like micro arrange them. You know, I don't got time enough to be doing that, but so I'm just going to try to do the best I can. And you want to make sure that all the seeds are on the pad and not falling over the edges, you know, very, very important. And if you grow the microgreens, it's not thick and dense. Maybe you haven't spread the seeds, you know, well enough, and maybe you haven't actually put enough seeds on there either. So we're just going to go ahead and spread the rest of these seeds. Alright, so it looks like I got all the seeds spread out, and I'm just going to go ahead and take my finger and try to, you know, get all the ones that are clumped out a little bit evenly distributed. And I mean, I could spend like 5 hours being all anal and doing this properly. You know what? Seeds are going to figure out what they need to do. As long as they're not too clumped together, it's going to be fine. I think I'm pretty good. Maybe right over here is a little bit clumped. Alright, so after you got them all spread out, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and then take your mister once again. And you're going to mist probably about 10 to 12 sprays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's go ahead and turn this around. 10, 11, 12. Alright, so now that we got this evenly moist, we're going to go ahead and take the second tray. This is going to be our greenhouse dome cover, right? These guys do actually not need light. So we're going to take this cover and spray about 5 times. Keep it moist. You know, it's very important to keep a moist environment. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How about 6? All right, 6. What we're going to do is we're going to take this cover, put it right on the top, and, you know, put this in a cool, dry place, right? Not in the sun, not in a greenhouse, between about 65 degrees and 75 degrees. So after you got this done, then you're going to go ahead about every 12 hours, you're going to go ahead and take off the top, peek in on your sprouts, see how they're doing, and then mist them another about 10 to 12 times, or maybe spray a little bit in the top just to keep a nice moist environment, especially important if you're in an arid climate, and then cover them. And continue to do this every 12 hours, check on them, spraying them down, and then in about 4 to 5 days, actually, once the second set of leaves appear, then you're going to want to go ahead and take this cover off, and then you're going to want to go ahead and put under some lights. So some standard fluorescent shop lights would be sufficient. You don't need any kind of special lights or spend all this money on LED lighting or anything. I mean, I got some shop lights, LED shop lights at Costco, which should just be fine. And then they're just going to grow, green up, and then you could go ahead and take some scissors and cut them, and then use them in salads, use them in wraps, use them in your, your fresh smoothies, and just most importantly, just pick them and eat them and chew them and get some nice vibrant flavors in the microgreens. I mean, that's how truly easy it is to grow your own microgreens. Once again, if you are looking for some microgreen supplies, check out handypantry.com, and you could call them up and tell them that John from Growing Your Greens or GYG sent you. They'll give you a special discount. That's pretty much this episode. I mean, I covered a lot of stuff. I covered, why you guys should grow your greens, some of the top easy greens, perennial and non-perennial greens you could grow, how to use your greens, and how to grow sprouts and microgreens even if you don't have a garden to grow outside. No matter what, I want you guys to start growing your own food and start including these fresh, healthy foods in your diet, because there's no other food that's healthier on earth, in my opinion, based on my research. And I'm going to continue making videos to share with you guys all for free at no charge how to grow your own foods and to be as healthy as you can, because truly that's what I'm doing, and I'm just sharing this part of my life with you because I want to be the change that I want to see in the world, and I want all you guys to do the same. So anyways, tune in to me at growingyourgreens.com, and I want to thank you for staying, and watching this whole video, because this video can change your life if you act on the knowledge that I've shared with you, because it has taken me literally a lifetime to figure all this stuff out, and I'm still learning new things every day. All right, bye-bye. All right, so what did you guys think of that whole presentation? Now, that presentation, I wouldn't say it's scripted, because none of my videos are ever scripted. It's all off the top of my head, but I did have a fairly rigorous outline of points I want to cover, and a lot of times I just do it on the fly, turn the camera on and start talking, and I have a plan, and then it always comes together. But that one was a little bit more scripted, and I have like, okay, I got to cover this, and I want to ask you guys, did you guys like the format of me just kind of being more like a teacher instead of just me being more off the fly? Well, I guess I'm still a teacher because I'm always teaching stuff. But that was a little more scripted, and actually that video was a bit more challenging and harder for me to do, and because I had time constraints on when I need to finish it, and I want to be able to share certain ideas and certain concepts and certain things that are really important to me, in a video to a wider audience that I would normally have access to, just through my subscriber base that knows me, and all the practices and things and some of my beliefs. If you watch a lot of my videos, you'll get to know me and how I do things and why I do things, and it was really important to me to get the information out in that video out there, and I'm glad you guys took the time to watch it all the way through. In any case, if you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. Let me know. I'll make more videos of that format, kind of being more teaching style, more like laid out instead of like more spontaneous like I like to be. It is a bit more challenging for me because I really just like turn the camera on and talking and just sharing my life with you guys, and that's what I'm really doing in all my videos. So, the other thing I want to encourage you guys is I have over 1,100 videos or so now on all aspects of growing food, more than any other person probably on the planet. And you guys could learn a lot from my videos. So I want to encourage you guys, if you are not already, click that subscribe button down below to be notified of my new and upcoming episodes, and be sure to check my past episodes. I'll put a link down below this video to check out some of my past episodes, from me starting a raised bed garden, installing irrigation, making a soil mix. I mean, I show it all in my videos, so you guys could get, have so much information so you guys are prepared and can start growing your own food today, because that's my main message. Grow your own food, and grow your own greens and eat them so that you could be healthier than the next person, and hopefully one person at a time I'll be making the nation healthier and more green at the same time. Alright, so once again, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time. Until then, remember, keep on growing. This is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com to do another exciting episode for you. Today I'm playing with irrigation timers, one of my favorite things to not play with, actually. I hate programming irrigation timers. Most of them you gotta punch through menus, and it's only like an engineer could understand it.